In the cold vastness of space, Star Trek Beyond gives us a surprisingly grounded and relatable message that even those that seem to have accomplished all their goals can still question their purpose in life. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for Star Trek Beyond. And like I said before, this really does have for being beyond, it has a surprisingly grounded message about how even those that have accomplished their dreams and their purpose can still have that midlife crisis, that quarter-life crisis, and question who they are and question their purpose in life. So as we dig into this theological analysis for Star Trek Beyond, what is your favorite Star Trek movie or show? Let's talk about that in the comments.
My dad joined Starfleet because he believed in it. I joined on a dare.
You joined to see if you could live up to him.
Look at James T. Kirk and all the freaking excitement in his life. First, in this Abrams-verse trilogy, we go to that first movie where he's aimless. We meet Kirk in a bar where he doesn't really know what he's going to do with his life. He enlists in Starfleet because of a dare from Captain Christopher Pike. He said, your father was the captain of a starship for what, 11 or 12 minutes or something like that, and saved countless lives, including your own. I dare you to do better. On a dare, Kirk joined Starfleet to live up to his father's shadow, to live up to that dream and live up to that ideal. And as you get through the first movie and he fights and wins against time-traveling Romulans, it's like he's passed the test. He's Captain Kirk. You get into Darkness and you find, he might not be so ready for that captain's chair. He's a little bit on that, immature side. But then as he's battling Khan, he matures. That whole movie is about him and his crew growing up and growing into those positions that they were destined for. And so we watch real character growth, and by the end of that movie, he has the dream of being the captain of the Enterprise on that 5-year mission into deep space, the 5-year mission into the new unexplored frontier, and his excitement to get that mission is just beyond compare. And now we pick up in this movie 3 years into that dream. Oh, and he's freaking bored out of his mind. Oh my gosh, as he just sits there and he questions himself and he questions his identity, he questions his purpose.
If the universe is truly endless, then are we not striving for something forever out of reach?
You know, this honestly reminds me of a quote from C.S. Lewis, where C.S. Lewis said, and I'm paraphrasing, if the universe had no meaning, we should never have found out that it had no meaning. In other words, if there is no meaning to the universe, we would never have even thought to have searched for meaning. But it's because the universe has meaning. It's because life has meaning. We question that meaning and we question our purpose and we go on these quests to find it. So Kirk, 3 years in, it's 3 years of the mundane. He wakes up, has some coffee, sits in his captain's chair, maybe spills a little bit on his lap. He goes to bed. He wakes up, puts on the same shirt, sits in the captain's chair, has his coffee, goes to bed. Every day, it's the same thing on repeat. He's just out there in space, him and the stars alone, and staring into the vast emptiness of space. He begins to question his identity.
You spent all this time trying to be your father, and now you're wondering just what it means to be you.
And Spock is in the exact same boat, because you got Spock looking at Ambassador Spock, Spock Prime from the Prime timeline. And what he's looking at is the outside of that Spock, his accomplishments, what that guy accomplished in the other timeline, what he's accomplished as he's traveled back in time and has found himself here in this timeline. And he's taking those outside accomplishments and comparing them to his inner struggle, and thus he's feeling very inadequate. I mean, this dude has accomplished much in his own life, but he's not looking at that. He's looking at Ambassador Spock and his accomplishments, and he's feeling inferior. And so he self-sabotages. He ends his relationship with Uhura, maybe thinking, maybe I need to go back to Vulcan and make little Vulcan babies. He finds out that Ambassador Spock has passed away. Ambassador Spock is him. It's an older, future version of him. He's literally just heard of his own death, reading his own obituary, facing down his own mortality. Yes, he's going to question things while trying to be a Vulcan and not have emotion because he's got to be logical now. So he's trying to logic his way through this, but my interpretation is he can't help but feel that inadequacy as he's looking at another man's accomplishments and ignoring his own and feeling completely lost, questioning the purpose of his existence. But then you have Captain Balthazar Edison.
You'll probably never see me again, but if you do, be ready.
Hundreds of years ago was a warrior. He was a warrior fighting in Earth's united military. He was fighting for the betterment and strength of humanity, and he was finding strength, meaning, and purpose in that struggle. And he did what any good soldier would do, and that is he won the flippin' war, and they won peace. And once they had peace, there's a federation, there's a Starfleet, and they're not military organizations, they're peaceful organizations. To thank him for his service and all that he's accomplished, they gave him a captain's chair in a peaceful vessel, and now he goes to break bread with the enemy, holding their hands, singing Kumbaya in peace. No fight, no struggle, no war. He grew up in a world where there was conflict, and in that conflict, he quote-unquote found a better version of himself. But now that he's kind of stuck in peacetime and he can't fight, the one thing he felt born and bred to do, he feels incredibly lost. He accomplished peace, and now he feels lost in the peace that he accomplished. And so the USS Franklin itself gets lost as he feels lost. And in that lostness, he gets consumed and twisted into something different altogether. Balthazar became Karl, finding this ancient alien world, finding this ancient alien technology, allowing him to prolong his life. But in that emptiness of his soul and that purposelessness that he feels, and the fact that he couldn't get a hold of the Federation when he was lost and nobody was hearing him and nobody was coming, he felt lost, alone, and abandoned, and he let that consume him. He let the lostness, he let the questioning his purpose consume him. So what did he do? He became a leech, literally surviving off the strength of others, absorbing their strength so that he becomes this creature that could continue on living. And it twists him from being a man into this monster, this alien that we see in front of us. He looks at the unity of the Federation as weakness, because they're all holding hands and singing Kumbaya, and it's a world that he doesn't understand. He only understands war, fighting, and conflict because he won't allow himself to change. He won't allow himself to become a new creature, a better creature. He won't allow that change to enter his soul. He fought for peace, he won peace, but he couldn't let peace in his heart. So when he looks at the unity that peace has brought, he can't see the strength of it. He can only see the weakness of it because he feels like there's nothing left for him to define himself by. So now he's got to go create something to define himself by. So he becomes a twisted monster. He searches for an ancient alien artifact weapon so that he can put this thing together, and then he can create conflict in the universe. He can create conflict in the galaxy. He can create war in the Federation and define himself by war. Now he says things very noble, that for the strength of humanity, he wants to bring back conflict. That in conflict, in war, in struggle, we find what we really are. And it sounds bold, it sounds noble, but I think it's a complete selfish cover-up. I think he feels so helplessly lost, he just wants a freaking good war so that he can just feel like he has a purpose and he can be doing the one thing that he's good at, even if he's the freaking villain, even if he's the devil inciting the war, inciting the fall, and destroying paradise. He doesn't care, because what life is about is his purpose, which is to be a fighter and a warrior. So he's going to push that on everybody else just so that he could have a purpose. He truly is a leech, feeding and surviving off the strengths of others, and the more he does it, the more of this monster he becomes. So what's the cure? They were looking out into the vastness of space. Kirk was looking at his father thinking, I can't live up to that. Spock was looking to himself, the prime version of himself, and saying, how can I live up to that? They had these projections and they were thinking, I'm not that. How could I ever live up to that? And thus they felt they were falling short and they felt empty. But through the course of this film, they found purpose. At first, it might give the appearance that Karl is correct, that through struggle, they found themselves and they found who they really are. But just because it was struggle that revealed it to them, it doesn't mean it required struggle for them to have that. Because they had their family around them the whole time. Kirk discovered throughout this whole thing that traveling into space, yes, what a great honor that is to have this 5-year mission. But what an even greater honor that I'm here with my friend Bones. And I'm here with Spock. The love, the family, when he's defined by love, and that it was the love that he had for them and the love they had for him that gave everything they were doing, no matter how mundane or how adventurous, that's what gave everything real purpose and real meaning. Spock finally went through Ambassador Spock's stuff and found the picture of the prime timeline, that original timeline of Spock and his friends. That as much as Spock felt his calling and became an ambassador and did these fantastic things, what even gave that meaning was those core relationships and the love that he had in his life. And that was a firm foundation for him to stand on. And it was that love, that unity that truly gave him strength and truly gave him freedom. And that's what truly gave him meaning. And Karl, who found that to be weakness, who found that unity to be nothing, refused to let that love in his heart. He became like a deaf ear with sound waves beating incessantly on it, unable to do anything because he's hardened himself and he deafened himself to it. He wouldn't let that in his heart. He wouldn't allow himself to see that as a strength. And as a result, the resolution of his story was he was consumed. He was consumed by the very weapon he meant to turn on them. He was consumed by the very weakness he thought was a strength.
We change. We have to. We spend the rest of our lives fighting the same battles.
Life actually has a meaning, and that meaning is love. We were created for love. We were created to be loved. We were created to love in return. We were created by a God who is love and loves us unconditionally, and we were created to love him and love others with that love. The real purpose in life is that love, and that love gives everything else true meaning and depth and purpose. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. So when I watch Star Trek Beyond, that's what I see in that movie. What do you see when you watch Star Trek Beyond? What is your favorite Star Trek movie or show? Let's talk about that in the comments. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by that subscribe button so that way you're notified for my next theological analysis, movie review, ranking video, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.